jumping back in, what were you saying, Cameron? Oh yeah, we were talking about
Uh,
the eyes. How
yes.
when a character is going through something, you can have the eyes go in different directions. You can have this thing where a character doesn't look perfect. You push the anatomy, you push the expressions, and you're not going to really read it when you're playing it at speed, but you'll feel it, that uncomfortableness, that weirdness in the character. So let's just hit play here. Like, you don't really notice that the eyes just go in two different directions, but you feel it, and then she's right back in.
Hmm.
You aren't the only streamer I've seen OBS crashing with recently. The other streamer even had audio force mute after the restart. Interesting.
Interesting.
Weird.
And just in terms of that expression, this is something that's helpful when you're doing impacts, is to have your character look weird,
Mm-hmm.
look off, because that will help sell the discomfort, the surprise.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people will try to animate the character looking appealing every time. And when I say appealing, what I mean by that is looking pretty.
Yeah.
And that's not the case when, like, if you ever watch people get hit in the face in slow motion, they don't look pretty.
No.
Like, one eye is open, one eye is closed, their face is all smushed over.
Yeah, it's all
Like, you want
distorted.
to sell that when you're doing something like this. You want to have that moment of like here where the eyes kind of bulge out,
The lips are
and this is,
dragging out in a weird way.
yeah, the lips are dragging. And the other concept here that's being played with is squash and stretch. She's being smushed,
Yeah.
so her eyes are bulging out just a little bit, kind of like when you squeeze a stress toy, and then it bounces back, and this nice like pull right
Yeah,
there.
that's spacing. Once again, the
Creates,
spacing is
yeah,
wonderful. Wama Wink overlaps out of it.
gracefully,
Yeah. That
and
that
then
is a
nice
good point.
overlap back in.
It's such a violent motion, and then Wama Wing just gracefully comes out. Such a nice
Yeah,
contrast.
she
Yes,
doesn't get shoved back. It's like, ah,
yeah. MLP, that is very true. Pretty does not
yes,
equal appealing. Appealing can be anything. A monster is appealing. Like Alien from the show Aliens, the movie, is appealing. It's
the
creepy.
bear from Apocalypse.
Yeah. Oh, that apocalypse
If you guys have
bear.
seen the bear from Apocalypse, don't look at it if things creep, like if skulls creep you out. But that is a cool design
Yeah.
for a monster.
Mm-hmm. So horrible things can look appealing. Godzilla is appealing.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways. Appealing is essentially we are fascinated to look at it. It could be
Yes.
horrible, but like even like let's say that expression like you you can't look away from a train crash or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like that there's a certain sense of appeal to it. It doesn't mean that we like it, but we can't look away. That's more of what you want to think of with appeal. We want the audience to not be able to look away.
You want them to go, wow, or whoa.
Yeah.
Or appeal is whatever emotion you're trying to get out of the audience. You want to make them feel that.
Yeah.
It's like if something is going to be gruesome, you want them to go, oh. If you want someone to go, aw, like it's so cute, then you have to aim for that. Because if you're trying to design something that is cute and people go, oh, ah, like that's you're not doing appeal right.
Mm-hmm. I'm just tracking the top of Horse's head here, just to look at the spacing. Let's see there. Look at that. Look at that beautiful spacing. You get that nice impact. It eases in, eases out ever so slightly. Now, technically, there's a 2-frame hold here, so you could even say that it would, if you were to do this on ones, it would be doing this. Actually, probably a little bit more this way. And then over 1 frame, it goes across. Look at that beautiful spacing. And the way they make this work, they're stretching the head a little bit right here, but
so that the mouth stays where the head was
Yeah,
before.
you can see right there, it's lining up where your eyes are already looking, which is horse's eyes. So it leads our eye all the way across, and then we get back into that nice motion there, and you even get a little overlap of the snout moving across as horse's head starts moving screen right. You get that nice, beautiful overlapping action that leads into the turn there. So just beautiful motion in through all of this. And we talked about lips before, how you want to push
Look at
the
that.
in and out. Look at that, beautiful, breaking the silhouette.
Yeah,
And
because when
still
you
an
say
arc.
new, like she's saying, hey, new. And when you say new, your lips go out. So if you want to emphasize that, you can really push lips going out.
Yep. And then you really get that F shape. Their lip sync is great.
Yeah.
Look at that. So good. Now, this next part here, this is something that I really love, is that that really fast motion across here. This is an extreme motion, and I just realized my camera stopped. Everything's going wrong. What's going on with the stream?
Because I'm here.
Yeah, probably. You've got this extreme motion. Wama Winks is going from screen left to screen right, and horse over one frame just snaps across and is on this side. And I love that those eye shapes there are just so appealing. I don't know what it is. It's just, well, I know what it is. It's just the lines, the thinking of that little overlap of the eyelash right there, the nice round shape at the bottom. You get that little extra push of the pupil. The line weight is kind of pushing where the pupil
Pushing
is.
out of the shape.
Yeah. But then you also get that little bit of squash and stretch where the eye stretches and then squashes and eases in. It just doesn't lock into position. So that really adds a lot. And you even get that little pop right there in the eye. But that's not what I was originally going to talk about. I was going to talk about the spacing here. So how do they make this work? Well, they're doing two things. One is they're using a smear frame. So you can see Wama Wink's position right here. As she goes over, our eyes are kind of focused right here on her face. This is, let me do a color that shows up a little bit better. What color? White? No, not white. No. I'll just have to pick a color. There we go. So you have the face right here. Now, as she goes over, see how they're still overlapping that shape a little bit with the ear and also the lip kind of pushing towards it. This leads our eye. It doesn't allow our eye to just get lost and not have a connection. Now, the way they get horse and Wama Wink to read here is something that doesn't always work. But in this case, they make it work because of the contrast of the characters. One is gray, one is pink. As Wama Wink is over here, she's filling in this space. And then horse is filling in this space right there. On the very next frame, look at where both characters are. Wama Wink is right where horse used to be, and horse is right where Wama Wink used to be. And if we kind of draw in the eyes as well, so you get the eyes here, and then here and here, look at where things line up. Right where Wama Wink's eyes used to be, right where horse's eyes used to be, right in the middle, right there. So
now,
as we get that, oh, sorry.
Something important to know about this is, in general, swapping things like that can be very confusing.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
if I have my arms here up like this and I swap them, it would be very confusing. It wouldn't read well because my arms are very similar to each other. Yeah. And you see this a lot when people are doing like runs where the legs just swap places and it just looks really messy because it's like the legs are just like doing this weird popping stuff.
Yeah. Well, it would be like if I did this pose here Let's go full screen here. Oh, and my camera froze. No.
Oh no, it didn't. I switched off of you.
There we go. So if I did this and then this, and if you're to watch the hands, this wouldn't read well because their silhouette is the same, their overall skin tone is the same, everything matches. It wouldn't read really well. You wouldn't be able to track what's going on. The reason it works here is because of that color contrast. Pink versus gray, even the shapes, very angular versus nice and round and soft. So by having that contrast, we can very clearly see that switch over that one frame. It's literally one frame.
It's a switch, but they're using the fact that the characters are so different to do what would normally be a pop. They're getting away with a really great trick here.
Yeah.
By swapping them into the same places they were, so that your eye doesn't go, wait, where did that go? Because your eyes already saw things there. And then they continue from that. It's such a great trick.
And even though they're using a trick, they are still thinking of the animation principles. So horse over this one frame right here before starts to move over. They're kind of using it as kind of like I don't like this. But that motion going screen right helps to lead into this motion here where suddenly the nose, see how the head is angled this way? Suddenly it's angled this way. So you started that turn and then big change of direction there. So you're not getting a contrasting. They could have had it so that as horse looks over here, maybe she turns her head screen left over this way. But then as the characters switch position, that would have been a pop where the head's going in one direction and then snaps across the other way. That would make it feel a little weird. Instead, they used a little bit of an acting choice before to lead into this moment. And it just works really, really well. That head pose is just horrible. Upside down. But this is just a wonderful moment. And you can see just how extreme and quickly that goes through. But it reads super clearly. We never lose track of what's going on. It doesn't feel like a pop. So once again, pushing that spacing. Now from there, the expressions are so good. Look at that face.
Smile.
Yeah.
So good.
I love how Wamawink, like if you just watch the head, it's just an ease out going out there, then it eases in, and you get that like push into the body. A little bit of a
shake in the head.
Yeah.
A little bit of a head ease in there.
But even still, they're pushing that spacing. If we kind of look
spacing never moves very evenly. There's always a nice exaggeration to the spacing.
Yeah. So let's just take a look at that.
And that is something as animators, you can get away with pushing your spacing like this. Look at that. Oh. So good. It really adds so much pop to your animation. It adds so much, and pop in a good way. It adds so much emphasis. It's really all about those eases and then going and then easing and going.
Don't let the computer put those breakdowns for you. It's really the thing that's going to kill a lot of student work is those breakdowns.
Also, just because, sorry, like look at her teeth. Remember what I talked about earlier about using those llama teeth? Like they really push those teeth forward there. It's really unappealing in a very appealing way. Like this is not a pretty mouth.
No,
you just got these teeth sticking out the bottom. It's so good.
I know. Everything about this, it's so wonderful. And then you get a little bit of an ease here going out. You can feel that arm and shoulder moving, and then in one frame, technically two because this is animated on twos, but in 2 frames,
and then just gone. One frame just before she goes where her eyes are facing in different directions,
and then she just ease out there.
It's just ooh.
And really it's the bouncing ball principle here. You get that hang time as she goes out. And then Everything's a bouncing ball. Even the hips. Like you get that nice little up and then down. Look at that nice eye shape change right there on horse.
Yeah, with horse.
Whenever you have an eye dart or an eye shape or an eye like moving across, make sure to shape the eye a little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. It helps to keep those eyes alive. And the nice offset in the ears. You get the one starting, then the other, and coming to a stop there. Really nice.
The
Great
head shake is so good.
So good. Now, next part here. Let's actually turn on the music there. Again, super fast spacing. In one frame, the legs just come out. Then you get that nice overlap in the head. It goes down because she's reacting. She's squishing down, squeezing her eyes shut. And then the head overlaps up and around. And you get that nice offset with the eyes as well, where the eyes pop open first and then the head comes down. You even have a little overlap in the hip, where the hip comes down and then back up.
A nice eye dart in there as well.
Yeah.
So she pops her eyes open and readjusts them afterwards.
Yeah. Well, she saw Wama Wink coming up here, opens up her eyes. Her eyes are still kind of up a little too high, and then they come down to the face. So it creates that feeling of thought in this moment where the character isn't just she knows exactly where Wama Winks is going to be. And yeah, that's a good point.
Jing, how her left leg kind of leads the rest of the body.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
This is actually a very good thing to watch out for here. So let's actually clear this drawing. So here,
I think he's talking about this leading leg here. It's already swinging forward, and then it kind of helps. Mm-hmm. So she's not just standing there and then pops. There's movement that flows in.
Yeah. But the other thing to watch out for, you'll notice that everything reacts at the same time. If you've heard us giving critiques, a lot of times we talk about how you want to have one thing react first and then other things move after. When you're pushing your timing so quickly like this here, you don't really have time to have everything lead. So you have the blink happen first on one frame, then the next frame the brows, then the next frame the head, then the next frame the body. In this case, they have one frame. So the way you can make this happen is you think of the individual spacing of the different elements. So I'm just going to, let's see what other, well, I guess we could do a circle right here. So we've got the nose, the top of the head, the two legs, and we could even think of the body as, how do I want to draw this? Let's just kind of do this like that. Now, as everything moves, I'm just going to draw this out here. Circle, chest kind of comes through right here. The snout goes down there, and then the head goes over here. Now, let's just look at the spacing on this. So, if you look at this, let's actually get rid of... that's fine. So, if you look at all the different elements, the spacing of each one is different. This foot travels that far. This foot travels further. The chest doesn't travel in a linear way, but you can see that this corner here barely travels, whereas this corner goes a long way. You get that offset in there.
Mm-hmm.
The nose is going up and kind of dragging upwards, whereas the top of the head goes straight. You can see how all of these are moving in slightly different ways and slightly different amounts. The top of the head, if we go from here, let's kind of draw it out here.
Eyes.
Yeah, I didn't want the creepy eyes. If we draw it there, look at how much that is a little bit wider than the nose right there. So even though everything moves on the same frame. They're not moving the same amount on the same frame, so you still have the lead and follow. You have
It's
this
kind of
leg leading, it's the biggest motion, so that would be 1, and then probably 2, and then the chest, the lower part of the chest kind of is leading, so 3, and then 4 and 5.
so you can see it starts with the legs, and then the head. You can see the numbers go up the body.
Yeah, but then it kind of does this, like that. It's arcing through the body, the lead through.
And a way to think about this is kind of what I talked about before about smears.
Mm-hmm.
How a smear is you're compressing time onto one frame. And if you were to spread that out, you would see all of the different spacing on individual frames.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's happening here is if you were to slow this down in slow motion, you would see on frame 1 the leg go and the chest kind of go, and then the next frame would be the next one and the next one.
Yeah, and then the head, then
You're
the nose.
just compressing that into one frame. You're thinking about your spacing and how that goes through, and you just kind of compress it down into one frame and lead through like that.
So even the hip, like if you look at the hip, the spacing is very small there compared to everything else. So it's lagging behind. So you're still thinking of that lead and follow, but over one frame or over 2 frames, whichever you want. It's still there. Now here, compositionally, this works really well. Just whenever you have a cut, you want to make sure the audience's eye is in the correct spot. So here, as an audience, we're looking at horse, most likely the eyes. Our eyes are also on this thing that just popped out of the screen right here. So we're looking at Wamawink. So the audience is kind of in the middle here between these 2 points.
Yeah, that's our visual screen space is, if I were to draw this out, our visual screen space that we are looking at is right around here.
Yeah.
Because we saw a horse move, so we were looking at this whole action here. We looked at this big thing here. So our eyes are tracked in this section of the screen.
Yeah.
And if we cut over to the next area, you see that is exactly where Wamawinks is.
Mm-hmm. So always keep that in mind. Whenever you have a cut, you want to make sure that the audience's eye is somehow led into the area where you want something to happen. If Wamawinks was over on screen left, that wouldn't work too well. I think you have to just tap on the screen again, Cameron. For some reason didn't. There you go. Haha. I have control again. Are you clones? Yes, we are clones.
Yes.
Technically, I guess you could say we are, in a way. Twins.
Twins are clones.
Yeah. Now, here, I just love the head turn here. So we were talking about having arcs in head turns and having the spacing be really dynamic. But you can change that. Here we have the spacing is much more linear. It's still interesting. There's still a spacing change through there. So it eases out, it goes faster in the middle here and then eases back in, but it's much more linear than what we've seen before. It's also much straighter. Yeah, just everything about it. But they are not doing this everywhere. They are saving it for this one specific moment to sell a specific feeling. And that's the key. In animation, we talk about all these rules, all these different things that you can do to make your animation better and do this, don't do that. But it's just guidelines. At any point, these rules can be broken and you can avoid adding squash and stretch. You can avoid having an action lead and just have everything turn at the exact same time. But you're doing it with a purpose. There must be a reason why you want to do that and a feeling you want to get out of it. If you're just doing it for the sake of doing it because, that's not going to help. So always keep in mind that you can break these rules. You can make things happen in any way you want. It is animation. But there should be a reason.
So what I'm drawing here is uh, something that's really helpful in terms of horse's head turn. When you're animating it with 3D, it kind of comes naturally, but with 2D, this is such an important thing, is being aware of the 3D space of your character when they do a head turn or any kind of turn. Because if you look at the spacing of horse's nose, it kind of just stays in place for a long time. It doesn't really go anywhere.
Well, it actually
It comes
arcs
out a little bit there.
outwards a
It
little
arcs
bit.
a little bit outwards, and then as it goes, it gets faster and faster and faster, and then big spacing there, big spacing.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept of this is thinking of your character in 3D space, because if your camera is here looking at your character, if they're from the side, and
Technically,
we'll go,
3/4 away.
yeah. So if your character is facing, we'll do this one over here. If your character is facing here, this is number 1.
And
You have
just
the head angle 1. Why did I write 2?
this is a top-down view for anyone who's
Yeah,
curious.
this is a top-down view. 3 and 4. So your character is facing away from camera on pose 1. As they move this way, they are essentially turning into the camera. So the camera is not going to see much in terms of spacing distance there.
Mm-hmm.
Because anywhere between here and here, your character is just facing kind of sideways, and you're not going to see a big difference in terms of change of spacing.
Even though they could be moving a long distance, you're just not going to see it.
Yeah, because the character's facing kind of sideways.
Doing this versus doing this. Same amount of motion, but you can see the fingers. You really feel that difference.
Yeah. So as it swings around to pose 3, your spacing is going to feel like it increases, even though it's the same amount as it goes. From the camera, it's going to feel like it swings through a lot faster because of that camera position. And this is important when you're doing 2D character turnarounds. And I see this a lot with like people who are first doing their 2D animation and they do a character turnaround, is it turns around at the same speed as it goes, which is incorrect, because it should go kind of fast as the character is forward and then feel like it slows down a bit and then fast and then slow.
Yeah.
Not because the spacing is actually speeding up and slowing down, but because as you go sideways on a character's head, it will feel like it slows down a bit.
Mm-hmm. It's might seem like, oh yeah, of course. But when you're actually drawing it out, it's very easy to just go, okay, I've got my nose over here. There you go. I need the shape to be over here. And let's actually go a little further. Let's say we want the nose to be over here. And get our spacing in there. So we know that it's going to start over here and then it's going to end over here. So you have that and that. Okay, well, just do that and ease it out. Just like that. That's not going to happen. It's not just a line that's moving across the screen. It's a 3D form, a square form that has to turn, go out, and then back in. So you have to think of your forms here. This is that principle of animation of solid drawing. This is where it comes from.
It's essentially thinking of your volume. Because horse's head is essentially a sphere back here with an object in front of it.
The green sphere disappeared for some reason.
Let me draw that in red then.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this red sphere. What was that?
So I was just going to say the same thing you were.
So you have this red sphere, and let me draw it over here. What you're trying to do is convey that feeling that this cube out in front of it is rotating around that sphere, going out in front of it, swinging across.
Yeah. And that's
Because
very
if you
tricky to
don't,
do when you're first learning.
if you don't, you're not going to have that sense of volume of your character turning. So it's very important to keep that in mind, is because of the volume, as it swings out towards camera, as it comes towards the camera, you will feel that spacing increase.
Yeah.
And they do that very well here.
Oh,
it gives such a great sense of volume to horse.
And just all the characters in general.
But especially here, like just feel that volume of the character. They don't feel flat.
Yeah. So let's just play through this again. So good. I love those expressions. So like, all of these things, it's a lot to talk about, but when you put it all together, it just makes it so wonderful to watch. It's fascinating. You're just drawn into it. Now, actually, just a note. This is actually something we didn't really talk about before, but in terms of character design, just a quick little thing that they do really well here is you've got two characters from two different worlds. And this is actually something Cameron noticed when we first started watching this. You have two characters from two different worlds, and they accentuate this by how the characters are drawn. If you look at the lines on Horse, the lines are very crisp and clear. The lines on Wamawink, rough and more pencil-y, I guess you could say.
You can see the difference in the line quality, whereas Horse's lines are very clean, almost like vector style.
Yeah.
And then Wamawink's, you can see the imperfections in the line weight. There's like wobbling, and it feels a lot more like it's drawn with like a more pen or like brush ink kind of thing.
And then on top of that, look at the shadows. Horse has a very cell shaded shadow. It's very just crisp, clear, sharp shadow right there. Wamawink, it's all cloudy. It's like a watercolor.
All airbrush.
Yeah, watercolor or airbrush feeling to it. And it's not a huge thing, but it really helps to sell the contrast in the characters, and it's just a beautiful design element on there. So
Horse has these hard highlights, hard shadows, very clean lines.
It's a wonderful choice that they did, that they didn't have to, but it adds a lot stylistically to the show. And this goes for all the characters. So when you look at all the characters on screen here, you'll notice that all the Centaur characters have these airbrush kind of feeling to them and rougher lines, whereas Horse, nice and sharp.
So on top of just being visually different, they are also stylistically different in terms of their animation approach. They're using the animation technique and just the technique of line and shadow, which is a just drawing technique to differentiate the characters, which is a really nice touch when you can use your style of animation or your style of art to emphasize the difference.
Now let's see. I don't know how many other clips we have here. Let's actually double check.
Well, if we're gonna do some
animation reviews,
some critiques, we could do it now.
Yeah.
Depending on how long it's gonna take.
Yeah. We had this shot here, but let's just play through it. So good. I love just the anticipation and then their follow through, and you can see that overlap in the nose. So good.
Yeah, again, that volume of the nose and the head. You feel that volume. It's not flat.
The lips moving across right there. It's a nice subtle motion, but you get that overlap and drag. So all the things we talked about earlier, it's all still in here. Even here, you get that nice weight, that bouncing ball of the snout going up
And the head.
before it comes down, and it drags the top of the head. You can see how the head leads this action. As it comes up, suddenly the weight of the stick draws the mouth down, and then that drags the head down. Really beautiful work there. So, before we go too much further, if anyone has things they'd like us to take a look at, definitely let us know. I know if Sarah, you're still here, you had something you wanted to share yesterday. So if you're still here, definitely feel free to post a link. If not, we could go quickly through the last few scenes. Oh, awesome. Perfect. Yeah, just post the link and we can take a look at that right away. That way we make sure we have enough time for it. Awesome. So for anyone else, if you want us to take a look at your work, if you have something on Sync Sketch that you'd like some feedback on, feel free to post the link and we can take a look at it. In the meantime, let's see, what was the other... While we just wait, we can play the next clip here.
So good.
There's something in here that I didn't notice until I started scrubbing through. I love Glendale there.
Glendale's
but you hear when she starts singing right here, that wah.
Ched in the back.
Yeah, look at his face.
Yeah.
Oh wait, a little further. There. It's just horrible.
And he just slides across. Yeah. So this is breaking animation rules for comedy.
Yeah. Just slides right across. He has a little up and down, but not much. And the thing is, like, when I watch this, we've watched this episode a few times. I never really paid attention to him before. Like, he moves across. Now that I've seen the face he makes here, I can't unsee it. It's just wonderful. So good.